Thank you. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for taking time out your busy day. I know we're all crazy busy at this moment in time. I want to just run through some of the conveyor systems and linear motion units that we do at Robo Units through Electro-Matic, and also give you a couple of little tips. Now, the tips are not just pertaining to ours. It could be any conveyor system that you operate. So hopefully you'll have a couple of little takeaway tips here that will help you. So the first thing I want to look at is the different types of conveyor systems you have. You typically have flat belt conveyors, timing belt conveyors, modular flat belt conveyors, and powered rollers. That's the kind of main categories that they come in. And they all do different things. So for instance, your everyday garden flat belt conveyor, which I'm going to switch cameras over to here now, and you should be able to see this. When we say flat belt conveyors, this is the type of thing that we're talking about. And it's ones that we're all familiar with. You have a belt on two rollers that are under tension. There is a stainless steel plate runs underneath, and it will move transfer product from one end to the other. Now, this is great for moving product that you want to move at a constant speed and feeding down through lines. You have different drive options, different width platforms. You can also do these as flatbeds, or you can actually do them as inclines. What's really nice is with ours is you can configure these online. The second system that we have is what we would call more of a timing belt. Now, in a timing belt, it's usually a lot smaller, a lot thinner. You can use them in conjunction. So for instance, if you imagine you had a large plate glass window that you're moving, trying to do that on a traditional conveyor system, flat belt conveyor system, would give so much weight, so much friction, it would be very hard to move. So what you can use this is, this would have 3 touch points, 2 or 3 touch points. They work in unison with each other. So you've only got the load on 2 separate ends or 3 separate ends. It's also very good when you want something to inch very close into the feeding line. So you could have a standard conveyor belt taking the product away, and then you could use this to feed. So you may have 5 or 6 bottles that you want to feed on at a time to then take on this other section. So these are the main ones that we can do. And again, like most of our conveyor lines, you can do these online. We've got 2 width platforms. One of the benefits you have with a timing belt is you have consistent belt tension. A flat belt, as it operates, it's like anything. It's like being on a treadmill. Your belt will stretch over a period of time. With a timing belt and with a modular flat belt, you don't have that problem because they're actually got tensioners on them and they've got sprockets, and it stops that from happening. Flat belts have really come into their fore in the last 5 or 10 years. You've got different dip belt designs. You can do flat, curved, and incline options. They're very flexible. You can do different materials. You can do metal. You can do plastic. So there's a lot more flexibility with the modular flat belt. Powered roller conveyors are ideal when you've got zero pressure accumulation. They tend to work on 24-volt DC drives, and we have got 3 width platforms. So those are used for, you might see them in moving boxes around. They can go forward and back. There's a lot that they'll take a lot more weight and a lot more heavy duty stuff on them. So what are the main components? Well, in a flatbed conveyor, you will have what we call the timing belt. So you've got your drive options. So your drive options on this particular unit, you can see we've got a timing belt on here. So you would have 2 gears. There would be a tooth belt between them. Then the motor would sit at the back. You could also direct drive them. All right, but these are the main ones. You then have 2 rollers either side of the belt. You've got a length of belt, and then you have a single piece joined belt itself of the material. You can then have a nose bar on the end of it, which is iron for it. You can see here. You can have different options. You can put the drive at the front, right or left, rear, right or left, or you can put it in the middle. So on the belts that we do, we have one that's based on the 40 series, which is our 40 by 40 extrusion. That will take from 40 millimeters through to 400 millimeters on width. And you can also convey a weight of up to 240 kilos or 500 pounds. On the 50 series, that will go from 400 to 600 wide. It will also take a weight of 340 kilos. On the 80 series, that will go from 600 up to 1200 wide, and it will take a total weight of 800 kilos. Now, in addition to that, when we say that's the width of the frame, 1200 millimeter frame width will not move a 1200 millimeter product. It's usually always smaller than that because you need to have some gaps. So what are the factors? You've got free choice of dimensions, belt properties, belt speed, as well as the drive and idler options. 5-day lead time for express delivery. We can actually get these out in 5 days, and you can configure them online and download them and get your CAD data for when you're designing them. Some tips and tricks, some of the benefits, obviously, price and performance ratio for customized solutions, quick deployment and short depreciation period, and time savings for quoting, because you can literally get a quote within 30 seconds. Some little tips and tricks that we've found. Always try and have the motor pulling the belt instead of pushing it. And the reason for that is this works on the basis of principle of friction. So what's happening is you've got a stainless steel plate that runs underneath the belt. You load it up, it will move the belt, so there is some glide and some friction on there. If you're pulling the belt, you're always pulling the belt under load. That means that you're going to be at the strongest tension here. If I had this at the rear end, I would be pushing it, and you would have the potential of, when I put a load on this, for this belt to bunch up. So always try and have the motor position that you're always pulling the belt. Okay. Also, second tip is tracking. Tracking the belt is one of the things that causes most of the issues. And again, what I would always suggest doing is try to track the belt at the motor end. So if you look here, you'll see our tracking system gets done by these two units here. So you would back off the actual bolt, tighten the bolt 1/4 inch at a time, and that will move your belt left or right. Okay. Now the reason that I say always choose this area, and it's a common thing that I've seen happen a lot, is what happens is we start at this corner, then you go to this corner, then you go to this corner, and you end up then chasing your tail all around it. So if you always track on one corner, what will happen is once you have this belt tracking at this end, the laws of physics, this bottom end will always fall in line with the tracking. So you're not always going to run around the 4 corners. The other thing to do when you're doing this tracking is always give yourself enough time. So when you're doing small incremental turns, always give the belt at least 10 minutes to run round. Because again, I've seen people turn it, not giving it long enough, and the next minute, all of a sudden, this belt will move to one side and you'll rip the belt. So if you take your time with it, give yourself 10, 15 minutes, always do the belt with no load on it, and you will always get the free tracking. Now, the great thing with the conveyor systems that we do, we already pre-tension them and we pre-track them. So 99 times out of 100, these are ready to go straight out the box. So you won't have to do that. But as belts get worn, as the longer they're in service, you may have to do that little bit of small adjustment on the tracking front. So always just track at one corner. And like I said, once you have one side running, the automatic opposite side will run in there. It's just one of the laws of physics. Let's look at the timing belt conveyors. They look very similar in their setup. Some things that are different though. Again, you have the direct drive option, or you can do timing belt options, and you can put them at the front or the back. But the belts themselves, the main difference with the belt is the belt itself has got cleated and it's steel reinforced. Also, instead of having smooth rollers on the end, you've actually got sprockets. So what that means is this belt will not go out of alignment because the sprockets are continually keeping it under tension and are continually keeping it straight. So once you've got one of these timing belts in, they will run a lot smoother in terms of tracking and any adjustments that you have to do. And you can also build them up in 3. So as I said, they're ideal for when you have, for instance, a large product if I was to put the book on here, I could run 2 of them in conjunction, and I've only got load on centered on here. Whereas if I was doing this on a flat belt, the whole load would be right across the unit, so it would be a higher area for us to move at any one time. So they're great for doing plate glass or car bodies or that kind of stuff where you have a large surface area and you only want 3 minimal points of contact. 2 product frames we've got them on the 40mm, and we've also got them on the 80mm. You can go from 400 to 12,000 millimeters in length. Your speed's 3 meters per minute to 58 meters per minute. Steel reinforced belt. The smaller of the unit has 30 teeth with 160 load per belt. So if I was to take 3 belts, it would be 3 times 160 would be the potential load. The larger one, it would be 3 times 400. So you can see that's why they're ideal for doing them as opposed to a flat belt. You'll get less slippage, and they're much more suited for these larger products that you want to move. You've got V-guides for the lateral forces. You've got multiple lane options, and you can see in this picture down here, you've got multiple. You can either have belts or you could even put chain in here. All right. You can configure them online and download the CAD data like you do with the other ones. You have consistent belt tension due to the belt tensioners that we have on here. Different conveyed good sizes are possible, high process reliability, and it's perfect belt tracking. Also, they really inch really well for when you're wanting to get something close in at a certain time to time onto the actual on-ramp. You can use these really well with sensors. Modular belt conveyors. Modular belt conveyor is similar to a flat belt, and it takes product that you've learned from a flat belt and the timing belt together. So what you have with a modular belt conveyor is you have the flat belt base that you're used to. At the end now, instead of having rollers, what you have is you've got rollers with sprockets, and they will actually pick up the little spaces in between the belt system. Each section's about 1 inch wide, and it will move the unit round. So you've got that benefit of not having to worry about the tracking. It stays in perfect track. There's also a little bit of sag in the belt underneath here, and that stops the belt from bunching up. So that allows you then to move forward and back. So with a flat belt, you would always just go on one direction. You wouldn't be able to go front or back. With a modular, you can reverse it real easy without having to worry about the tracking going out. So again, we can do it from 1500 to 12,000 millimeters in length. Speeds we can achieve 6 meters per minute, 50 meters per minute. You've got multiple belt options, as I said, whether it be plastic, whether it be metal, whether it be hard plastic, soft plastic, whatever. We do a 1 inch belt pitch. So each of the actual modules are 1 inch incrementals, and you can take 750 kilograms load per belt. You can then combine them with curved belts, which is really cool. So now you can make an actual system up where you would have a curved and a straight. So it gives you a lot of flexibility in your actual designs. And you can see some of the pictures here that you can do it. So you've got flexible layout. The modular belt katana resag with the safety cover means that the belt isn't going to bunch up on you. And your belt guide and sprocket ensure your belt tracking stays in place all the time and all the way through. You can combine straight, curved, inclined sections possible, giving you greater flexibility. There's no pinch areas, which is really good. And you can do lateral push off of the product, which means that you've got low maintenance. The applications, it's great for accumulation, incline, the transportation of heavy goods, and conveying parts with sharp edges. So you could have stamped goods going on there. If you got a heavy duty plastic on there or heavy duty metal, you're not going to get that cutting the belt. Powered roller conveyors are the granddaddy of them all at the moment. They're used extensively for you've seen them in palletizers, you've probably seen them in engine blocks, you've seen them bringing tote boxes forward and back. Anybody looked inside an Amazon warehouse, you'll see them all over the place. They generally run on 24-volt motors, and they're driven. They come in sections of, our particular one comes in sections of 4. So you have 4 rollers that are driven together with one motor. And that gives you a lot of flexibility in your designs. It also allows you to take different frame widths. We do 390, 490, and 690. And we do standard lengths of 6,000 millimeters. So you can do big long runs of these. You've got a lot more control over the boxes. You can move the boxes forward, back. You can then have things like turntables. So you could have one main feeder and you could have a turntable coming off feeding 3 machines or feeding 3 different stations. You've got transfer units that can do the same thing, and they all combine with each other. You've got galvanized steel rollers with plastic coating. You have a poly V-belt power transmission. So basically what you'll have is each section of 4 will have 2 belts, 2 rollers tied together with a poly V-belt. So if you lose one poly V-belt, you still get the drive on the other 2. All right. There's space savings. We can actually do lift tables, so you can come in from a lower level, go up to a higher level and go out on other stuff. So it's a lot more flexible, and it's become a lot more into the warehouse applications that you've seen. As I said, anybody who's seen inside an Amazon warehouse or any of these big warehouses, you'll see these all over the place. You can see down here, you can have all the different channels feeding all the different lines. So it can take a tote box, bring it along, transfer it off into the station where an operator could be doing sub-assembly work, or you could be using a cobot that could be doing loading and unloading of boxes, or feeding it into a palletizer or a depalletizer. The plug and play fully integrated controls. So we can play with Ethernet, we can play with Profinet, we can play with IO Link, we can do all sorts of weird and wonderful things. You just plug and place them. We have a variety of the modules. We can do the galvanized steel. Some customers ask us just to do steel itself. We will do that. You can change a belt really easily. If you break a belt, you can run it over the 2 of them. Similarly, if you damage a roller, they've got very low maintenance on them. You can also do zero pressure. It's energy efficient, and you can convey in all directions. When you buy it from us, you have immediate deployment. We actually run all the product and test it all. So you can just put it straight in, it's ready to go. You don't have to worry about tracking or anything like that. You just set the height, put it to the floor, and away you go. They're great for zero pressure accumulation, indexing, and positioning of boxes. So if you're feeding a line and you have several sub-assemblies, this would be brilliant. I mean, an engine block, for instance, you can take that in and out of each of the machines to do different parts of the machining cycle on it, and keep your line. Then you would have a central line here running it, and then each one can go into the feed into the robot, which would do the machining, and then feed it back out into the line for the next station, for the transfer stations. Our linear motion, I'm just going to touch very briefly on it. What we have is we have very like the powered roll, the timing belt conveyors. We have a toothed steel reinforced belt. 2 sections on here. It runs across our area extrusion. So it runs along the top edge of the extrusion, then runs along the internal part of it. So it's going to be protected every time. The pulley system goes on the end, so it comes round the pulley. You then have a carriage plate with a roller. You have a hardened part here that basically allows for the carriage plate to run backwards and forwards. Now the carriage plate has actually got its own cleaning, so it's always going to be self-cleaning and self-lubricating. You can put oil as a little felt washer in here, so it really is low maintenance. You can get very accurate readings on this, so you can use this for a gantry system, or you use it for a positioning system. You will get like very accurate readings every time, and it will repeat over and over and over again. So we do a 50 millimeter, which is our 50 by 100. We do 100 millimeter, which is 100 by 100. And then we have what we call the Omega one, which basically is the carriage on the opposite way. But you can see you do 200 millimeters per stroke of revolution, and your accuracy is 0.2. So it's really, really accurate stuff. So when you need to get if you're doing an overhead operation where drilling or whatever, you need to make sure it comes down on the same part every single time, you can use this linear motion to actually do that. Again, you can configure online. We can get these out within 3 to 5 days to you. So you don't have to worry about, waiting a long time for these. We can do, semi-customizable solutions within 3 to 5 days. So, simple modular design based on the 50mm series with up to 12-meter lengths possible. It's compatible and integrated with all our entire modular automation system. The hardened guide rails allows for high loads. It's cost effective. It's individually customizable to what you need. Short design and assembly lead times, high wear resistance. You have a play frayed DRAM edge for the guide rail and the extrusion T-slot. So that means that you're always going to be true every time you use it. You can use expanded couplings, and you can integrate a limit stop on there, so you can figure out where you want this to stop and do a hard stop every time. We can also do complete solutions. This one started life just as a simple conveyor. Then we added the frame system around it to hold the conveyor in place. Then we wanted a little frame to hold the box. We were able then to put in a frame system at the back to site your HMI for your vision system, your control box, an inverter drive for speed, and then add your safety that you need. So you can actually get complete solutions through ourselves in Electro-Matic, and they all fit really, really nice together. One of the things that you'll notice as you start working on these things is the need to add vision systems. And it's really simple. Because all of our products are compatible with each other, all you need to do to add a system together is use our modular automation system, attach the fastener to the bottom of it, take your mating part, put in your drop-in nuts, slide in your bolts, tighten them up. I'll just do one side. And now what I've got is a little stand for a web camera. So I can put a little scanner, barcode scanner or whatever. Attach it to the frame is really easy. All you do is take one of these little gussets, attach it here, bolt them up together, and you're ready to go. So there's no drilling, no milling. And this can be used on anybody's conveyor system. If you've already got that, you can actually use this. You can drill a hole, put this in, then this will allow you to slide up and down. So you can really add to the vision and the web stuff that you need for your sensors. Real simple, real easy. So we're coming to the end before I open it up for questions. So I just want to leave you with some thoughts, some general tips and tricks for both for conveyor systems. And this really comes down, whether you're using ours, whether you're using somebody else's, these are some general tips and tricks for you. One, always choose the correct belt for the application. And that's this part here. If you've got sharp parts that are coming off, you would want to use something that's a cut resistant. Otherwise, you're going to be replacing these belts all the time, because as the sharp parts come off, they're going to start cutting through. If you in a secondary food line, you want to use a food grade belt, that kind of stuff. So always try and make sure you get the belt, correct belt for the application. Adjust your conveyor belt without products on the belt. If I'm moving something, when you're doing these adjustments, always do it unloaded. All right. Because if you do it loaded, you could run into a lot of trouble. If you do it unloaded, you know it's all going to be running true before you do it. Apply the correct tension to the belt. This is really important, and it all depends. There's a certain percentage, certain level you do it. And what you would do is you would mark the distance on here, tighten her up, and then you'll be able to see how far the deflection is. All right, we can walk you through that. But again, whatever belt you're using, it doesn't matter. Whatever belt or whatever manufacturer, but always make sure you've got the belt under the correct tension. These are all things that I've found during industry, that if the belt's not under the right tension, what's going to happen is you're going to get sticking to the belt, you're going to get slippage of the belt. So always make sure you keep your belt under tension. Make sure the belt's tracked correctly. A lot of times I've seen, as time goes on, belts wear, the tracking moves, and you start fraying along the edge here. So always make sure you've got your belt tracked. It's always a good idea to check your conveyors on a regular maintenance schedule and look at these points just to do a visual check. Clean the belts. Because often, a lot of times I find is people don't clean their belts, and what happens is stuff gets underneath the belt and causes damage to the belt from underneath. So always make sure you got properly cleaning your belt. Clean them off and clean them properly. Properly store your belts. I know it sounds crazy and it's simple one-on-one, but if you've got spare belts and you keep them and you've not got them stored properly, the belt could stretch, or if the temperature's too much, or if you stack stuff on top of it, the belt will then get a kink in it, So always make sure you properly store your belt, and make sure your profile's doing the job. All right. If this profile gets worn or damaged, that can cause damage to the belt. So always make sure when you're checking this profile that there's no damage and no wear on it. All right. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the quick presentation. Hopefully it gives you some general tips and tricks. We'll open it up now for the questions. Sarah, do you want to carry on and explain what else you guys do?
Sure. So while we have everyone here, just to make you all aware, Electro-Matic is officially a authorized channel partner of robot units. We currently have lots of inventory in stock in our facility in Farmington Hills, along with full customization, assembly, modification services. So in addition to the conveyor technology, we also will be able to assist you with any sort of aluminum extrusion and fastening technology, safety guarding, or even a combination of a conveyor alongside an extrusion system. Also, I will be sure to send out my contact information along with Henry Tolles, should you guys have any questions that pop up after we sign off today. And if no one really has any further questions, thank you all for joining, and we look forward to hearing from you and working together, hopefully in the near future.
Actually, one question's come in from Michael, whether the conveyor ship from. That's a good question, Michael. All our conveyors at the moment are made in Cranbury, New Jersey, and they ship from there. The going forward, what will happen is as we develop the relationship with Electro-Matic, the plan is to have them to be able to make them in Farmington Hills in Michigan. So, but right now, everything comes in from New Jersey. Everything is locally sourced as well. We don't bring parts in from China or anywhere like that. So we are a true US company, and all of our products come in from the US. So it's locally sourced, locally made. Okay, Sarah, I'll finish for you for the closing remarks.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Again, if you have any questions after we get off today, we will be sure to send out contact information, and please don't hesitate to reach out.